Welcome to another episode of The Tapestry. I'm Dr. Francois Booker Drew, and this is a show designed to listen to the stories of amazing women. And through these stories, we learn lessons. We learn about how they've overcome tragedy and how they're using their lives to create amazing, beautiful portraits that we can all learn from. And so, again, I have a wonderful guest who's a good friend of mine as well. Shauna Hughes is the Global and Product Growth and Innovation Evangelist. She does a lot. So I'm going to read a little bit about her, and then I want her to tell you more about the wonderful things that she does. But she is the Global Product Growth and Innovation Evangelist at Get Feedback, the leading customer experience management solution for Salesforce. She is the co-lead for SurveyMonkey's Black ERG Build, a Salesforce MVP with over 11 years in its ecosystem and holds many certifications and designations. She is seen as a thought leader in the Salesforce ecosystem and beyond. She co-founded a successful nonprofit to help underrepresented adults break into technology. Her leadership with Teen Tech Titans, Pep Up Tech, WIT Diversity, and other community organizations has led to multiple awards and recognitions, including the Equality Trailblazer Award and Golden Hoodie. Shauna has the distinct honor of signing the White House Pledge to America's Workforce along with Mark Banoff. The Pledge to America's Workers committing to expand programs that educate, train, and reskill American workers from high school age to near retirement. And this is just a small bio because she has done so much and so many amazing things, and I'm just honored to know her and get a chance to witness her work. So, Shauna, thank you for being on the show and saying yes.
Thank you, friend. That was a mouthful, but I really appreciate it, Francois. This is amazing.
Well, I'm just so glad you're here. So we're going to jump in. One of the things that I wanted to start off the conversation with is you live in Minnesota. You live in Minneapolis, correct?
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to start off talking about is this summer has been challenging. And one of the things that I know is we get to see a piece of what happens on the news, but for folks who actually live in communities that are having constant attention and unrest, it's a different conversation there than what we get to see and experience, in other parts of the country or even the world. And so tell the audience about what you saw, because there are a few things you and I talked about, and we didn't go into a lot of detail, but talk about what you saw and experienced, and how did this shape you, and just kind of give us this timeline of what happened.
Yeah, and I am going to assume you're referring to George Floyd, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's been multiple things that have happened here locally, so just wanted to clarify that. But, it was, startling. It was shocking to a lot of people here. You hear the stories about police brutality. We're used to that in our communities, the Black communities. We experience it every day. We know about it. We know about the excessive use of force, et cetera. So it's not something that we're not used to. And as you can tell from the video, when George Floyd was murdered, you can see people looking and sitting around and videotaping and asking the officers, questions and et cetera, because it's normal, right? And that's hard to say. And the people in the city, the first response outside of our community was like, oh, well, he's a criminal. He, X, he had some counterfeit money. They were making excuses, as they usually do, for this man losing his life and being murdered. And it wasn't until the video came out and was released broadly that then everyone kind of woke up. Because you've seen this man being tortured for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. You've seen him literally die on camera, so to say, in front of you. So a lot of the groups and a lot of the people, and I have to give it to, our community of young leaders who really showed up. And what I say, showed up and showed out. They created all types of programs when it comes to, food drives, when it came to protests. They created all of these things for the community. So when you see and you look at the news and they portray it as so much violence, like there's protests happening. Oh no, not protests. They use the word rioting, to make it negative. There's rioting happening. This has been burned down. This has been, destroyed. You are destroying your own communities. And yes, there was some looting happening. There was some, buildings burning. Like I don't think that should have overshadowed all the good that was being done. I don't think the good even got half the, airtime as some of the bad, So I, in that moment, and even a lot of the organizations that were subject to some of the violence, and mind you, a lot of the violence that was happening wasn't even from the people in the community. It was from people coming from out of town. The St. Paul Police Department, where they say 99% of the people that they arrested wasn't even from the community. So the business owners even said, like, I can rebuild. These are things. These are material things. Someone lost their life.
Yes.
Someone died. So to see the community kind of rise up and come together and really support one another and help each other, that was amazing to see. And it's just on a national level. I know a lot of people, all they hear about is the negatives that come out of these things and not the positives.
And I wanted you to share that because I agree with you. I don't think people said it. And I want to, go on record for saying I didn't say George Floyd's name because there has been so much unrest that's happened there in addition to it. I did want you to focus on that. But you all have had a lot of different issues that have been going on even after that happened. And so I'm sorry for not clarifying in the beginning. But some of the other things that have gone on, kind of share, because I don't think people understand that you all have had a summer that's been very different, to say the least.
Yeah, it's been tumultuous. I can't even say the word. It's induced trauma. That's what I'm going to say there. It's been crazy with a lot of the things that's been happening after George Floyd. Of course, there's been a lot of just racial tension in our communities, and of course, there's been other community-based murders. And what people don't realize is that Corona has magnified the disparities in the Black community, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like it's anything new. It's just intensified. It's added fuel to the fire of all already broken and really struggling communities. So when you make a bad situation worse, you're going to feel the effects, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see what's going on in our communities with people dying, people being murdered, it's a symptom of the fact that they don't have any resources, any outlets. We don't talk about that. We talk about how many people have died from COVID, but we don't talk about the living that are suffering. right?
Right.
So we don't talk about the communities that are literally suffering from not being able to access resources. Everything's shut down. Like, how do you if one of the things that you use to supplement your household was going to a food shelf, you don't have access to food shelves anymore. You don't have access to social workers. You can't go into, offices to receive assistance. And a lot of the organizations that help the community, the nonprofits that help the community, they couldn't fundraise. Right. They're struggling too. They couldn't fundraise this year. They, their funding sources dried up. So it's heartbreaking because, you and I both know, regardless of where you are in the world, if you are in a disadvantaged community, you know that there's drugs, there's abuse, there's, violence. There are all these things because people have no hope and they have no outlet to really be able to get the help that they need. And that's what I see that's been happening in our communities. Not only with, racial tensions, but people losing their jobs, and not being able to get a job. People, having family members that have died of COVID. We know that the Black community has been disproportionately affected by the disease because guess what? We have the jobs that you have to interact with people the most. We have the service jobs.
Right.
So when you think about all of these compounded issues, and you think about how they're affecting this one community, no one's talking about that. And the mental toll that is taking on everyone.
Because that's really the next pandemic, if we're honest,
exactly.
is the mental health piece from the isolation, the instability of jobs, dealing with racism and systemic oppression and all those things, and being re-triggered by all those things, even though they've been constant, you're being re-triggered. All of those things compounded what we're about to see around mental health. I don't think people are having the conversations enough and really beginning to start planning for what we're about to see.
Exactly. And when you think about it, not even think about it, if you're a data person like I am, statistics, numbers, analysis, you already know that Black people or people of color in general across the spectrum, Black, brown, beige, whatever, we are the least likely to go seek help. And we are the most likely to self-medicate.
Yes.
So when that happens, you just, like you said, that's the next pandemic. And when things like this happen and it's compounded and you don't have any help. And when we talk about mental health, I'm all for it. Get mental, I'm a proponent. I tell people all the time, go talk to someone. But the problem there is we don't have the resources. We don't have the funding. We don't have people that look like us that can, commiserate with us and understand that plight, that pain that we go through in that profession. There is a limited amount of, therapists that can relate to the things.
Exactly. It's the cultural competence piece. And, what's been interesting is watching, with everything that's gone on with George Floyd and what we've seen, Atiana Jefferson and Botham Jean and Breonna Taylor, and you see this over and over again, that there's this interesting conversation now that's happening with DEI work. And we're starting to see more companies make statements around, equity and talking about that. For you, you're seeing that also in the tech space. So talk about what have you been seeing around that now? Because that's also kind of this response to what's been